I might say, "Remember Grandpa?" to a cousin. But Trent, the Capitol Hill intern who has asked to get coffee with me, doesn't understand my question's rhetorical nature. Where I expect a nod, I get a look. I am confused right now, but my confusion is sad for you and not me, because I am young and you are old. I know that look. I remember giving it. And finding myself on the receiving end, I begin to panic. You know, the song, "I'm Just a Bill," remember? Trent is the kind of eager 19-year-old who thrives in Washington. He carries a leather folder with a built-in legal pad upon which he has written questions in advance, and he wants more than anything to make a good impression. But I've given him no choice. Grimacing, he shakes his head, which is how I learn I might be the last of the Schoolhouse Rock generation. But if you're of a certain age, which I hasten to point out is still most of them, that show defined democracy. My grandparents owned a VHS of the children's cartoon, and whenever we visited, I'd pop the tape into the VCR, press play, hit rewind, and then watch it again. For the handful of you too young to know what most of those words mean, here's a synopsis of "I'm Just a Bill," the show's most enduring segment. A homeless talking scroll befriends a male human child. Via song, the Bill, whose name is Bill, explains our political process. Bill the Bill started out as an idea held by the American people. A legislator wrote him into existence and brought him to the Capitol. If he's rejected, he will literally die. But if Bill's debated in committee, approved by the House and Senate, and signed by the President, he'll become a law. "Gee, Bill, you sure have a lot of patience and courage," exclaims the boy. The song ends with Congressman McCoy, a portly lawmaker in a 1970s-style brown suit with wide lapels, waddling down the Capitol steps and announcing that Bill's been signed. "Oh, yes," squeals Bill. As a singer, Bill has a vaguely bluesy voice, but when speaking, he sounds like a cowboy who is also a drag queen. In retrospect, this was one of several strange elements of Schoolhouse Rock. Yet sitting on my grandparents' shag carpet, I happily overlooked any oddities, vocal or otherwise. Like the millions of American children who have sung along to "I'm Just a Bill" since it first aired in 1976, I was too busy rooting for the protagonist. It would be more than a decade before I cast a ballot, but Bill I could relate to. Here was this endearing little guy, full of charm and potential, determined to win over adults on his way to growing up. And even if I couldn't yet articulate it, I could appreciate that the true hero of Bill's story was the very system of government he described. In other countries, citizens' lives were governed by a king's dictates or an aristocrat's whim. In America, we too had leaders, but we ruled ourselves. This was not a typical arrangement. Back when I sat in my grandparents' living room, eyes glued to the TV, fewer than half the world's people lived in a democracy. If you considered the full scope of history, all 105 billion human beings who had ever existed, that number fell to well below 5%. But as an American, I was different. I was special. A working political process, one designed to turn the people's will into reality, was my birthright. For the first few years of my own intersection with American history, our real-life system of government mirrored the one Bill sang about. In November 1986, 6 weeks after I was born, President Reagan signed sweeping bipartisan immigration reform into law. When I was 4 years old, we fought a war in Iraq for understandable reasons, won it decisively, and left on time. Under President Clinton, we raised taxes on the rich, the economy boomed, and Americans of every income bracket saw their fortunes rise. I don't mean to suggest that our republic made exclusively good decisions. Some ideas led to unintended consequences. Others were just plain awful. But our democracy functioned. Most of us got the government we wanted most of the time, and when we were no longer happy with our leaders, we replaced them. That was the true promise of America. Not perfection, but constant improvement. What made us great was that we could always make things better. As a child, I found it all immensely appealing. My country and me, brimming with patience and courage, growing stronger all the time. Oh yes, indeed. Fast forward a little more than a decade. In 2011, as I began my new job as a White House speechwriter, I brimmed with Bill-like enthusiasm. By the time I began working for President Obama, Republicans had won control of the House of Representatives, and I knew that the accomplishments of the president's first 2 years